in a sea of R2B. But I do think, given the historic form of this neighborhood and the fact that this is a commercial building, I think there is a good argument for the C zoning, putting the sort of constant need to come back for applications for non-conforming use, I think creates a lot of uncertainty for an owner of a commercial building. These small buildings, I think can be more challenging to rent. And I hear a lot from folks that they like to have these neighborhood serving businesses nearby. This is a very small site, so I think it's very unlikely to have something like a restaurant here. I don't know, but if there was any use that needed a liquor license, we have other controls in place that would allow us to set the hours of operation of any kind of restaurant, certainly anything that served alcohol. And so I feel comfortable with those regulations allowing us to mitigate any kind of impacts on neighbors, recognizing that this is very close to residential. But that's often the case in our commercial corridors as well. So I think it's appropriate here to think forward and think how we imagine this building will be used in the future and how we would like it to be used in the future. I think it's unreasonable to consider that this would be used as residential. I mean, maybe you could, but I think it's clearly a commercial building, and therefore it seems appropriate to me for it to have the neighborhood scale commercial zoning.
Right. Commissioner Rockwell.
Very briefly, I agree with Commissioner Bender and think that if we require application for non-conforming use or change in non-conforming use, reality is this building is going to end up being vacant, which is worse for the neighborhood. Also, we look at this map and it's a huge sea of R2B, but in fact, there are other non-conforming uses along Bryant. In fact, on the same block, I believe there is a cafe down at 33rd and Bryant. So this is, these little one-off speckled commercial uses, particularly on a street like Bryant, which is a throughway. They are part of the way the city developed, and this building, I think, fits in with that. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Kronzer.
I will be supporting the motion. Just also wanted to mention that Bryant is a bus corridor. Number 4 is on the high frequency, but it's darn near close. And also there's a full block park, kiddie park from this property as well, which really changes the context and the urban form of this intersection as well. Thank you.
All right. And I'll just add, Bryant Avenue, of course, is considered a community corridor in the comprehensive plan, which generally supports C1 zoning. We've also established more of a precedent in recent years of accommodating these small standalone commercial buildings that have been there for many years. And we've seen if they remain non-conforming uses, a lot of times they just remain vacant. It's very unlikely. The economics do not work for someone to tear down a building like that and build a single-family house or duplex, which might otherwise be allowed by the zoning code. So I think this makes a lot of sense. And the C1 zoning district is still pretty restrictive. It's intended for buildings like this that are very small in their square footage. So if there is no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Gateman?
Yes.
Gisselman?
Aye.
Hanser?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
7-0.
Right, and that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 2. Item 3 is DLTL Ventures LLC at 416 35th Avenue Northeast, a conditional use permit and a site plan. And Aaron Hanauer is staff.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm going to use the computer. So you provided a good summary, Chair Brown, of the applications before you to establish a recycling facility here in Northeast Minneapolis. The applicant is okay with the conditions of approval, but we did receive notification and an email from neighbors with concerns and objection to the plan. DLTL is an establishment that's applying for the conditional use permit that completes recycling, warehousing, and manufacturing of consumer goods. And the recycling aspect is the only portion that requires a conditional use permit. The project site and the properties on the west side of 5th Street Northeast are industrial, and then as you can see clearly on the map, on the right side, there's the low density residential. It's important to note that with the project site, and here's just an aerial of the subject property in the neighboring area, but the project site and the industrial land on the west side of 5th is part of the Shoreham Yards Industrial Employment District. And in 2006, the city of Minneapolis established 7 industrial employment districts, including Shoreham Yards, as part of the industrial land use study and employment policy plan, with the goals to help retain and attract new industrial firms, prevent industrial land from being converted to residential property. And here showing all the industrial employment districts, and then on the right, that map showing the Shoreham Yards Employment District, that red dot being the subject property. So just the eastern border portion of the employment district. So even though the plan wants to retain the industrial land, it also wants to provide a buffer between the industrial uses and the residential uses, so having additional landscaping. Currently, that landscaping is not there along 5th Street where it borders the residential properties. It has had increased outdoor storage since the applicant, the property owner, took over in 2011. And it's on the right-hand side, you'll see a number of trailers that have been parked there, more than just loading in and of itself. So staff had concerns with that, and also want to note, as we did in the report, the number of, there's been 4 complaints that have come in 2014 and 2015. Those have been resolved or have been closed by our other city departments. So we just also want to point out, we know that there can be some friction when there is industrial and residential uses that are side by side, and that this use was operating beyond what is allowed by a recycling facility. However, the applicant is now well aware of the requirements for recycling use and the other aspects of operating near residential property. And to help with that transition, from industrial to residential, the applicant has proposed to do a number of improvements to the site to bring the site into compliance with the zoning code, including there's a barbed wire fence on the southern portion of the site along 5th Street. The applicant is proposing to remove that. CPED is recommending putting stipulations on the outdoor use of the property, including not allowing trucks or trailers to be parked on site outside of typical loading, and not allowing parking of inoperable vehicles on the site. And in addition, a number of site improvements that the applicant's proposing or staff's recommending. With that removal of that barbed wire fence shown in that red or brown on the site, the applicant is proposing a decorative privacy fence, both along the 5th Street and then along the southern portion of the property. And then adding 7,300 square feet of landscaped area along 5th Street, planting of 30 trees, 150 shrubs, and 150 plants. So we really feel that these additions to the site and the public right-of-way will really help with the buffering. It will help the aesthetic appearance of the area and help with that transition from industrial to residential. There's been 2 letters received since the publication of the report, one from the neighborhood, appreciating the applicant's work to mitigate and improve, to help with the situation with neighbors' concerns, and then also the second letter being opposition to the project. Happy to answer questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kronzer.
Thanks, Aaron. The staff report says there's 3 uses going on at this facility. Is that still correct?
Commissioner Kronzer, that's correct, and that would be maintained as part of.
So then what percentage is the recycling facility of the overall? Not just approximately. So the third, is it half? Is it 75%?
Let me show. If you can see this, thank you, about 20%, and it's the portion here that's blank, labeled E, I believe. Right here. So about 20% of the building.
Okay, but the conditions of approval here would apply to all 3 of those uses.
The conditions would apply to all 3 uses. I do want to point out with outdoor storage, we call out for the conditional use permit condition of approval that we're recommending is that outdoor storage for the recycling facility is limited to cardboard and paper. If one of the warehouse uses or the production use wanted to have outdoor storage, they would have to comply with the other requirements that it be at least 100 feet from the residential property to the east. So it'll be up to our inspectors to analyze if that outdoor storage is but metal, aluminum cans, or else if it's elements that would be used for the warehouse or the production use.
But that would be allowed independent of this application.
Yes.
So that'd be allowed
Yes.
that has no bearing on this.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? If there are none, I'll open the public hearing. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Ken Piper with Tannic Architects, 118 East 26th Street in Minneapolis, and I'm representing the applicant, Dan and Linda Karst. I think Aaron has pretty much articulated some of the technicalities of the site. What I'd like to do is just kind of quantify that a little bit just for your edification. Again, I think it's important to note here that what we see on the site currently, as it relates to the edge on the industrial, is everything moving from this end to the west is industrial off of 5th Street, as well as to the north of 35th, and down to the south, what we have is railroad and overpass. So there's really not too much here. So I think what we're really dealing with here and kind of going through this whole process has been the edge that identifies industrial and the neighbors. I think you'll agree with me, based on what you see from some of the photos and those kinds of things, that there's been a lot of hardscape to the site, particularly on that. I wouldn't call it attractive. And so I think from our purpose and the applicant, we've gone through the process of working with the Planning Commission as well as with the Neighborhood Association to understand some of what the issues are. I think we've come up with what I would term a remarkable approach to address that in terms of softening that hardscape, particularly that addresses the neighbors and potentially their concerns. I think just to summarize this is a footprint of the building itself. And you'll see from that, again, that what we're trying to emphasize here is the area that addresses the recycling component, which at this point is sorting and baling is primarily what the applicant does within the building on site. And I think, as Aaron mentioned, there's a series of other uses. Now, these uses, office, light, industrial, are all permitted. Recycling is also permitted, but under conditional use. And then I would just like to take you, again, to the area. Let's see. That we're really referencing here, and bring you into some of the order that is created by what is now the hardscape. And I think the most remarkable thing here is an expanse of about 370 feet by 20 feet of basically greenscape that we're going to put to it. So it's basically from curb 20 feet in. And there's a combination of that because the yard here meets, we're again putting the requirements of not just the decorative fencing here, but also layering that from the curb with grass, some trees here, and then with shrubbery that actually complements the height of the fencing. So it's important to note that as this grows, you're not just going to be seeing fencing, it's going to be a layer of greenscape. Also, just to note on here, that access to the site, whereas before seemed to be part of all this hardscape, is now we're restricting to 2 curb cuts. One curb cut to serve the parking area here, and the other curb cut, which is a little wider, to serve the traffic, the access that will go to the yard and within. Also, this area will be striped. You can see from some of the overheads that that's not the case right now. And then in addition, the shrubbery continues all the way through. So again, I comment that this will be a remarkable transformation from what you see right now. It is greening of that area. It is creating a buffer. It's creating a transition. And it's one that we really are excited about. In addition to that, based on the recommendations that are in front of you for the conditional use permit and all the conditions, we agree to those conditions. So we again are asking for your consideration. And I think in addition to that, just to stress that the neighborhood process was one where they were very complimentary of what we've done and at a position of neutrality. We certainly see that as a positive because we understand at the same time that part of that reservation was from the proximity of residential to the building. The building's been there since 1959. So,
Right. Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? There are none. Commissioner Slack.
Yeah, one quick question. Was there any thought to, and I don't know if this is a city policy, but any thought to extending the sidewalk through the site to 35th? And then a second question along with that is the fencing, the new fencing that's being shown. Was there any thought of extending that all the way up to 35th as well?
Commissioner Slack, for the sidewalk, we did discuss with Public Works, and there was no, at this time, interest to continue the sidewalk at this location. I think just the block to the north of the project site is also void of a public sidewalk. And then, sorry, I don't have the full extent beyond this, but, and then shortly after that, it ends the city boundary, the northern city boundary at this portion. So we did review that with Public Works, but there was at this time no plans or no interest in having a public sidewalk continued there. And then could you repeat the other question? Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Slack, I believe your question was as it relates to the fence going all the way to 35th. And while consideration was made to that, I want to just point out here that, first of all, in addition, we've limited down to 2 curb cuts. But what we do feel about this is that with the shrubbery that we are proposing, as for example, the requirement in this area is for a 3-foot fence. And we feel that with the shrubbery that we're proposing and a maturity life of 2 to 3 years, that this will exceed the 3-foot height. And so would provide, we feel, would be a little more effective than the hard edge of fencing. So at this point, our fence, the tall fence, again, has been restricted to the yard area. And in addition to that, then, not only are we doing that, but we're doing a combination of that and varying heights of shrubberies and trees. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions of the applicant? If there are none, we can move on to some other speakers. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Bixler. I live at 3465 5th Street Northeast, directly across the street from this property. And I do believe I'm the originator of the original complaint from April of 2014 that brought this into light with zoning commissions. My family has owned this property that we live in since 1960. For the first 50 years, there's never been a complaint with any industry over there. It's always been inside, quiet, manufacturing, warehouse type of thing. The last 4 years has seen a great deterioration in the property over there. We're talking an entire scrapyard being run over there. The same type of thing that you're trying to take out of North Minneapolis along the river, your Northern Metal Irons, Scrappies, Kirschbaums, is what they're asking to do here. That's what is being run out there in the property. I've had numerous complaints. I've had 311, zoning, everything else, and this is why we're here today. I have multiple pictures of what is being visible there. I even have a video I want to show you of just what happened within the last 15 days there of a large machine just shredding a vehicle and taking it apart over there. When you talk recycling, you think cans, indoor facilities. If this is a proposed indoor facility, why isn't it indoors already? This has been operating for 4 years already over there with complaints going for the last 2+ since I started. I don't agree with this. The job they're proposing looks nice, yes. The greenway is supposed to be there already. That's city property. That's been paved over previously. So that should have been there anyways. The fencing, 6-foot high fence, does nothing. Our property 6 feet above street level. We look right over everything into this place and to watch this. Also, this permit or asking for this permit does not address the other issues that were in my original complaint. There's multiple zoning issues going on over there with intermodal trucking companies operating out of there, general freight trucking companies operating out of there. There's, from what I can see, at least 10+ people operating, 10+ businesses operating out of that building over there. You have no idea who's coming or going. There's problems over there. There's cars coming and going. You don't know if this is a crime scene or what. It's all hours of the night. Hours of operation aren't observed. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're calling 911 to get a squad out there to stop the noise from trucks being loaded. I don't agree with this. I'd like to show you what we see. If I can. Oh, I guess I can't really zoom in very well on that.
The camera operator can zoom in a little bit. That's use.
This is what you're talking outside storage. This is what we see out here on a daily basis. Just piles of metal, piles of junk being dumped on the ground. Hauled in by numerous companies, different companies, dumped on the ground, shredded, cut up with this machine, packed, cubed, and shipped back out. It's continuous noise. You got a dozen diesel trucks running over there at all times of the day and night. Fumes that are, all the winds come across there. The fumes are all blown into the residents across the street. And our property values have dropped. We've seen an increase in foreclosures or people just walking away from their properties now because they can't sell them because there's no value. And I really am opposed to this. Let me see if I can. I'll show you a little short video here. Let me zoom in on of the large crane in the back shredding a semi-trailer. This crane operates operates higher than the building. So there's no way you can move this operation indoors. Look at that. So that's a semi-trailer being ripped apart. That's me standing on my back doorstep watching it. The other machine they use is a semi-trailer also. It's a large compactor that they use to either squish cars or squish bundles of metal together and ship them out of there. I've seen motorhomes brought in there and shredded, semi-trailers, semi-tractors, cars, you name it. It's came in there, been dropped on the ground, cut up, and packed into these dumpsters and hauled out. This is not your recycling facility that they're playing it to be, that it's going to be great for the neighborhood. With that, I am opposed to this, and I would ask that you do not approve this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Yes, please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Rachel Lallam, and I'm a resident of 3467 5th Street Northeast. My husband and I moved in there 10 months ago. April 2015, we purchased our home, and just to be clear, we 100% recognized when we bought the house that we were moving in directly across the street from a facility like that. In addition to the points made by Mr. Bixler, I would like to, reinforce what he said and also point out that, the facility, we've seen it operate all hours of the night. Between midnight and 3 a.m., you can always expect someone there, and it's not always trucks or semis or anything loading, unloading. Sometimes we've seen like 2 vehicles meet up there. I don't know what is going on. I don't know what kind of exchange it is, but gut feeling, it's crime related, and I can't confirm that, but it just doesn't seem legitimate. So our concerns are that, the facility's operating hours, which I do realize because they're not public use, they don't have to fall under that guideline. I'm sorry. My concerns are that they're detrimental to the neighborhood comfort, and that, the open nature of the lot and the people that meet there at random hours, it's encouraging the potential for crime and other illegal activities. I do recognize that the proposal submitted includes a lot of nice greenery. I appreciate that. I think it's a good plan. However, I'd ask that the conditional permit also includes a clause, or whatever you want to call it, that restricts business operating hours. It's been an issue, and I feel like it might be a step in the right direction to at least. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. So, as I was saying, I realized that that operating hours, are not subject to So the applicant states that they typically operate Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I realize that because their business is not open to the public, that they're not subject to hours of operation. But even as a 10-month resident, I can't say enough how disruptive that lot has been. And I feel that maybe perhaps a clause stating that, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or something similar would be a very fair addition to the proposal. Additionally, the proposed plan includes the landscaping and a 6-foot privacy fence. Again, noting what Mr. Bixler said about this, our houses are 6 feet off the ground, off street level anyway, so we'd be able to see right over that. I'd like to ask that fence maybe be considered to run the whole length of everything off of 5th Avenue Northeast, just as a buffer to deal with traffic, and additionally, perhaps a security gate might be a good addition for those 2 curb drops, or curb cuts, I believe they're called. Again, with all operating hours, and who knows what's going on there at night, I feel like maybe a fence that runs the whole way, and operating hours, a restriction on operating hours might be a potential solution. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Elaine Nissen, and I live at 3520 Spain Place, the street just east of Northeast 5th Street. I promise you I would never have purchased my home 5 years ago had I known that a metal recycling operation was going to be operating within 100 yards of my house. During the summer, I can't keep my windows open. It's constant noise. This is not fair. This is the destruction of a neighborhood. I think you need to please think very carefully about what you're doing. These individuals have proven that they do not have respect for our ordinances and for our zoning. What makes you think they will respect it going forward? And I thank you very much for letting me speak my piece.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Yeah, yes, the applicant, if you'd like to, if you'd like to address anything, that's fine.
I think one of the things, Mr. Chair, council members, that I wanted to just point out here is that there is a security gate right at this point that basically secures the yard. And so this area here, again, is the area that just based on daily usage and traffic of that nature would be the area unsecured at this point.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes. State your name and address.
Dan Karst and my wife Linda Karst. We're the owners of the property that we're talking about here. And I think I'd like to address some of the things that were just said here, because we didn't disagree with getting the conditional use permit. When we purchased that building 4 years ago, not only us, but the attorneys thought we were well within our zoning laws. Since then, we've been proven different. So we're not opposed to getting the conditional use permit or the screening, which we planned on doing regardless. But to the pictures you were shown here tonight, they had to trespass to get those pictures. They were not pictures from the street. I think to go back to the equipment outside, yes, we do have that. One thing is not a shredder. It is a shear. We do move it to move things around in the backyard occasionally.